Fellow speakers, distinguished leaders, and honored guests, I'm grateful to Consulus and to the planners of this year's Shape the World Summit for including me and inviting me to share some of my thoughts and experiences of working with leaders who have a clear cause for their leadership and for their lives, really, and then challenge us. I hope to challenge us individually to affirm or perhaps even discover or rediscover our cause, the cause that we each have. My talk will address four main questions. What do we mean by cause? Why is cause important? How do we discover our cause? And how do we best live out our cause, especially as change-making leaders? So what do we mean by cause? We all have a purpose in life, but a cause is much more. In the case of leaders, it's our reason. It's our reason for being, our reason for leading. While a purpose gives us meaning and direction, a cause is what gives us fire in our belly, igniting our motivation, and giving us a strong bias for action. Have you ever written down what your cause is as a leader? I invite you to write it down sometime soon. That's your first assignment from my talk. I will have 3. You don't have to do it right away, but soon. And the reason I invite you to write it down, it doesn't even have to be a whole page, even a paragraph or a few sentences will suffice. But I've seen such cause statements expressed in even a sentence or two. And when you write it down, you might be surprised because when we write, we use a different part of our brain. And sometimes we see things differently than when we just say things out loud. Interesting. I think you'll find that very interesting. It sometimes gives us new insight. We can even use the word vocation to describe our cause. The word vocation comes from the Latin vocare, which means to call, or in some cases to be called, or a calling. Our vocation is our calling. While we each have many different types of vocations in our lives, whether that be volunteerism, the vocation of parenthood, the vocation of a spouse, today I will focus on the vocation of the leader, specifically the change-making leader. So, why is a leader's cause important? Our cause, as I said earlier, is really our driving force. It's what gives us energy, passion, and ultimately the competence to live out our cause and to make change. Without a cause, we are like a boat sailing without a rudder. We have no map, no plan, no destination. We're definitely not leading. When there's a disconnect or a lack of alignment between what the leader believes is their cause and what they are actually doing, I have found that that is one of the primary reasons for performance problems, dysfunctional relationships, a lack of clear vision, and difficulties with sound decision making, even a lack of satisfaction with work and life satisfaction, which leads to unhappiness. So as you can see, it is so important. And ultimately, the organization will not be able to reach goals without leaders who have strong commitments and understanding of their cause. To take the time to examine our cause and what might be the gap between our cause and our actions, which is your second assignment, by the way, examine that gap. It's well worth the time. And the reason I invite you to do that is that we can otherwise spend years working. We get into a rut, we get into a role, and we just stay. Sometimes we're not leading, not doing, not accomplishing, looking but not seeing. And without clear cause, the leader's followers also flounder. Would you agree? They don't have an understanding of where the leader is taking them, what the reason is for the destination, or even what it is, and how they will know when they've arrived there. So how do we discover our cause? When it comes to careers, whether it's a vocation in leadership or another field, the process is really the same. There are steps a person can take and clues they can pay attention to that will help reveal their cause, their vocation, their calling. First of all, we must realize that a calling infers an invitation, does it not? an invitation of some kind, or a summons. What are we called to do, and who is making that call? Something worth thinking about. We can begin by taking the time to reflect on the gifts and talents that we've been given. Some of these talents are part of our individual makeup, our inherited traits, and some are learned or developed through our experience and our socio-historic background. What are our interests? What do we really believe in? What are our skills and abilities? And more viscerally, we can reflect on how we feel and how satisfied we are, as if we are where we belong when we have identified and are acting on our true cause. In the case of a calling to leadership, we also must examine why. Why do we want to be a leader? Maybe we've been seen as a leader by others. Thereby, the invitation has maybe come through what others have said to us, like, you have some tremendous leadership qualities, or when you're leading, we feel like we're all going in the same direction. That's a clue that we have leadership capabilities. People are not born leaders per se, I don't believe. Would you agree? We may be born with propensities, such as acute senses that are important for listening and perceiving, verbal skills and thought processes that are important to clear communications that leaders need, but things like self-awareness, insight, organizational skills, strategic thinking, people skills, and other leadership characteristics and competencies like that must be developed over time. That development occurs through a combination of life experiences, a willingness to lead, taking opportunities that arise, courses in leadership, and sometimes mentors, coaches, among others. What I'd like to offer here that may be unique about leadership from all the different ideas and things you've read about leadership is that becoming a leader is not only about acquiring the skills and competencies, but it's about who the leader is and who the leader is becoming as a person. The values, the presence, the leader's behaviors, especially when under stress. That's when you tend to find a leader's true colors, when they're under stress and how they act in those situations. The ability to form positive relationships, and more. So finally, how do we live out our cause, our vocation as leaders? One way is to stay in alignment and notice when we are experiencing a dissonance that may indicate we are not doing what we are called to do. That dissonance gives us a clue. Then, without true cause, if you have a true cause, you will not need to be convinced. You will know, your heart will tell you that you're not aligned with your true cause. So, speaking of change, this track is about cause for change. My topic is supposed to be cause and creative leadership. So I mentioned earlier that leading change, especially large-scale change, and Johanna mentioned it as well, is one of the most challenging tasks of leadership. But to do it well, we must first be able to change ourselves, and to do so from the inside out. That means that if we don't believe we need to change or are unwilling, because maybe we're too comfortable in our current state, then we will never be able to actually change, or to change others, or to shape impactful creative change in our organizations and ultimately in our world. This takes courage and a commitment to change. Change is not easy for us humans, is it? Our brains are wired to do things the way we've always done them, are they not? Because it's faster and easier than learning new neural pathways up there. There are many factors to consider when leading change, but I believe the first is to believe in the reason for the change, the cause. And I don't mean there has to be a burning platform. By then it might be too late. Would you agree? I mean that we need to understand the cause for change, be able to articulate it, and share the vision. We can't do it alone. It takes good leadership and in turn, good followership. But this is our opportunity. It's the way we can truly live out our call to creative leadership when we can leave change. Notice I did not use the words manage change, because that infers the change will just happen and we have to manage it. No. Creative leaders must be able to lead and make the change happen. Otherwise, it's like being back on the seas without a rudder. This is truly our opportunity. It is our time. You will be able to change the world. You can be creative leaders, leaders with cause. Be change makers. This is your third assignment. Nothing can stop you. Thank you for listening.